Welcome to the podcast. We talk about all the things that are hidden in the shadows. This is Isaac.
And this is Megan.
And on this episode, we talk about
Cropsey.
And it feels like it's been a while since an actual episode. We've been getting things together and ready for our live podcast episode and investigation.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. So finally, we were planning to go somewhere else, but that fell through. But now we have a place that we thought was but end up coming to find out that it's holy crap. So I guess the plan is well, time you listen to it, this Saturday, the 29th, we are having a live podcast episode. So you can see us recording in the person, as they say, at 7 o'clock this Saturday night. And then immediately following that would be the live investigation from Shadow Walker Paranormal's TikTok, right?
TikTok or Instagram. We're still working out like those kind of kinks.
Yeah.
But we'll make an announcement definitely beforehand.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is the live podcast is actually at the location.
Yes. So we're doing a live podcast from the location.
Talking about the location.
So if you hear AVPs, if you see things in the background, if you hear things during recording, so you're here in real time. So, and then the recording from that episode will come out that following Monday. So even if you don't have a chance to watch the live, you still can go back and hear everything that happened.
On my end, because I edit our podcast, I'm going to try to actually not edit as clean as I normally do, just so that if there is any EVPs, you guys can listen to it, and I'll put a disclaimer for the people that get upset with that. So,
and we're not telling anybody. I know you're probably asking where the hell is it going to be. We're not telling anybody until the day of. To find out where our investigation is, you have to tune in 7 o'clock this Saturday, October 29th, to find out where the hell we're going to be.
Yeah, and it's mainly for our kind of like safety reasons since it's local.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, so the Saturday night, 7 o'clock. And then following that would be the live investigation from said location at 8.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it'll also be full-fledged, like, Shadow Walker Paranormal's first, like, episode on the YouTube page. So I'm going to edit it all nice like and upload it onto the Shadow Walker page as our first official episode. So that'll be fun.
No Real Haunted update, right?
No, not really. Just same old.
Yeah.
So we really haven't even done that many investigations since.
Getting ready for this one.
Yeah. So it's kind of just like getting ready for it. I mean, it's not something where you gotta like mentally prepare for it. This location has a bunch of different like paranormal things happening, if that makes sense,
which will be explained in the live.
Yes.
But another thing I just remembered, the bonus episode this Wednesday.
Oh yeah, the roundtable
part 2.
Yeah, which has we have Corey, who's been on here before. He's an urban explorer. He was on the past roundtable. Then we have the Unknown Paranormal. We have Mike from the UK. Mike from Shadow Walker Paranormal.
Yeah,
that's everyone, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have my list handy. Kind of like when I go grocery shopping, I make a list but never take it. That's kind of how that
What was difficult about that episode is that there were 3 mics that I had to talk to at the same time.
Yeah.
So I remember I had to go Mike A, Mike B, Mike C, but it was a good episode. And
it's a long one.
It's gonna be a long one because the conversations we have and the topics we go through. Honestly, I barely talk in the episode, but there's a lot of conversations from other people during the whole thing, and it's interesting topics that they all share. So it's gonna be a good one.
Yeah. So if you thought the hour and a half one from the first episode was a long one,
No.
Yeah.
I remember funny. Corey kept saying that these episodes always go long. I was like, yeah, so far.
Yeah, because you got a lot more people trying to talk and you want to get their stories out and all that stuff. And depending on the experience. So far, we've had really good luck with grouping correct people together. So people that vibe really well together. So that's, great on our part,
Yeah. So, on to today's episode.
Yes. So, today was a request that we do. A lot of the times, we'll get sent things that people see on TikTok, or even we see stuff on TikTok and we're like, ooh, good episode idea. And this was one of them. Somebody had seen an urban legend of Cropsey, which the idea of Cropsey is obviously terrifying, but the fact that it came basically to life in a true crime type story. So this one's going to be kind of short, just because there's not a lot, and we cover more of the paranormal versus true crime, and it kind of turns that way. It starts off as an urban legend and then morphs into an actual like true crime like situation that took place. Kind of a little bit of some of the stuff that the guy says makes you kind of think, oh, was something paranormal involved? And then plus the location where I guess these murders took place, I mean, to me would be haunted. It'd be a place that I would look at to see if it was haunted. So yeah, so let's go into what the urban legend was actually, what it was actually. So who the heck is Cropsey, right? So the urban legend started around the 1970s around Staten Island, New York. While there was different variants of the story, there was little changes here and there because it was a very word of mouth kind of story. The story focuses around a man that after the death of his son escaped a mental health hospital and would kidnap and murder specifically children. And he had a hook for a hand. Some stories have that he had an axe that he would go crazy with. And you got to think this was in the time of like slasher movies when it was at its height. So this story would be told from parents to kids like, you better not go out there. You better not stay out late. Cropsey's going to get you.
Why hasn't it become a movie, or it has?
It was a documentary, and then there was, I think, a similar story-esque that took place that became kind of like a horror movie. It was like based off of it, but it wasn't like 100% Cropsey. But a lot of horror movies from like the 1970s all the way on, kind of. And, a lot of people that lived in the Staten Island and New York area have memories of like their parents telling them about, Cropsey. So it was kind of like the Staten Island Boogie Man, like, don't go out late, don't go by the tunnels, don't go there, Cropsey's going to get you, don't behave, like that kind of thing, like how La Llorona was for
No, I know you do.
You know what I mean? You get what I'm saying? Like and for kids.
No, it was La Llorona, it was Cucuy, and it was a Chupacabra.
Yeah.
Mom and dad would always use them. You better go to bed or Cucuy's going to get you. What?
Yeah, so this took place in the 1970s. So this was, spread out. And like I said, a lot of slasher movies started to come out. And some articles even describe that the story was always told at like the summer camps there. It was always told to kind of just like spook people. But in the 1980s was when the legend turned true. There was a rampant killer around the Staten Island area named Andre Rand. He basically started kidnapping children, and he was convicted of 5 murders. He worked for a janitor, the Willowbrook State School, which at the time that the murders actually took place was abandoned. It had closed down. And this is the crazy thing about the Willowbrook School. So it basically, the Willowbrook School is similar to all the asylums and psychiatric wards and stuff like that, the weird hospitals that you find all across America that during like between the 1940s all the way through the 80s and 90s even, that basically is a black eye on the medical and state type system because of use, the not being treated properly, experiments, stuff like that. So the Willowbrook State School, the way they show it in the Cropsey documentary is that it was this big massive area, and they had little branches off of little different things. Like there was a tuberculosis hospital that was close, but the main school was a reformatory school. Reformatory school for disabled kids, and it operated from 1947 till 1987. Now this is the crazy stuff. So I watched some of that documentary on Cropsey because what it does is it covers the urban legend first and then kind of morphs into the whole Willowbrook School and all of that stuff. They had footage because what had happened was, who was it that went there? The Senator, Robert Kennedy went there, and he was like, whoa, this is a snake pit. Okay, still didn't close. the journalist Geraldo Rivera did an expose in 1972. It was one of his bigger like stories that he came out with, but went into the school with cameras, right? And showed all of this, and you could see the actual footage. And this is 1972. That's not that long ago, right? So at 1972, from 1947 to 1972, it's already been open multiple years. And so he shows this footage of these disabled kids naked. There's feces everywhere. You could tell there's abuse. They are so crammed. It's really, really disturbing that in the 70s took place. You know what I mean? It still didn't close, not till 1987. This guy, Andrew Rand, was a janitor, or some people called him an orderly. Some articles had him as an orderly, which was an assistant to like the nurses and stuff. So basically he was there and would do whatever, with a little loose end things that he needed.
Orderlies are mostly almost like security.
Well, yeah. The way they described it was that like anything that basically needed to be done that wasn't like a nurse job or anything, he would do. So if it was like cleaning up throw up or whatever. So he was around all these kids, which is kind of scary that later he ended up killing, disabled kids and kids in general. And yeah, so it ended up closing in 1987. So you can already imagine that area has just like a black cloud over it. And so, yeah, so he started actually killing people in 1987, kids, and he lived on the grounds, but where he would do the killing was the abandoned tuberculosis part of the area hospital place that it took place in. So when it closed in 1987, that's when he started killing. But craziness, right? Before he even started killing, he had prior convictions. So he had prior convictions of dark stuff before he even became a janitor or an orderly. There was one thing where he jumped onto a YMCA bus and kidnapped a whole bus of kids and took them to the airport. So he's already kind of like crazy. But going back to, I watched a series of TikTok videos and series of like part of the documentary of people kind of describing the area that I guess he would take the bodies, and I guess that he kind of lived on the premise of it. So I guess technically he lived in the abandoned ruins of the tuberculosis house thing where they would, okay. So one thing I found was that there was this TikToker called Preepy history class, which actually went to that area. She went over the story of Cropsey, and then she said that there was rumors of dark satanic rituals, and even the killer himself was possessed. Those are rumors that they said. When they took him, like when they arrested him, I know there's one specific picture or video that's like, it's kind of creepy. You look at it and you're like, what the heck is going on with him? But he's drooling really bad. And he's being handcuffed. He's not showing any emotion. He's just drooling. And people just thought he was crazy. But there's some people that thinks he was possessed. And that's what led him to kill. And he killed because of child sacrifice and all of that stuff. So that's kind of where the paranormal side kind of creeps in. But it's unknown, You don't really know. Apparently one person said that in the comments said that they went, and obviously the encounters that they had at that area were not good. Someone else said that they had seen a satanic altar. Well, one rumor is that there's a satanic altar there. One person even said they went into like the tunnels of the area, and it's like stepping back in time. I know there was one person that had said that if you go to that abandoned area, you could still see like artifacts and things from the tuberculosis hospital. Like I think the one person saw like the actual food tray and like different instruments and stuff scattered in the woods itself. And his first victim, she actually was found in a shallow grave in that general area. So, there's a lot of death just on the land alone because of all that area, near Willow Brook. Yeah. And,
Has that been a place been investigated before? I feel like it already has been.
I don't think it has. I don't know I don't know, like when I was looking at it definitely, I feel like a lot of like homeless people kind of reside there. I'm not sure. So I don't think really people mess with it too much. And then the idea that it wasn't that long ago that there was a murder that committed there kind of, I don't know if that freaks people out. It's definitely a spot that a lot of people go to just to go to, but like I don't think there's been actual people that have been investigating it that I know of. I wasn't able to find any investigation videos. So I don't think anybody has investigated. But if it was up to me, I mean, I'd be hitting up that school.
Yeah.
Because I have never seen, when I tell you, like, you know, you've seen, you know, because of all the abandoned stuff with the psychiatric wards and asylums, and you hear like trans-Allegheny and all that stuff. But you seeing the actual footage is something else. And I mean, just disabled kids completely naked laying there in their own feces. Like, I mean, granted, you know, some people that have disabilities don't understand, but at the same time, some of them do. And I did not know the level at which people just gave up their kids if they had a problem like that, a disability. And I mean, it is really sad. It's really, and the fact that it was, I mean, it's state owned. The state friggin' condoned this. Like they said, okay. Oh, another thing that happened at the Willow School is, you know, you always hear these reformatory, like there's a reformatory school that got closed down in North Carolina that they were practicing vasectomies on the teenage boys. And this one, they were practicing hepatitis treatments. So these kids were getting injected with hepatitis, and they were young. They weren't like old either. They were young, old, you know, older ones. So, you know, that area alone is, and everybody that was in the comments says it's a very heavy area. You know, you think even the tuberculosis area, which is where, you know, the body was found of the young girl, you know.
Yeah.
So, and that's where it kind of gets kind of true crimey, and that's not really our expertise. Even though, funny enough, I wanted to be a detective, so I mean, it technically is it's something I look up and research on the side, but it's not something I would want to cover, just because it's not awkward for me, but it's like I feel bad covering that, I guess, because it's such a heavy topic. I mean, the paranormal is heavy, but so heavy. I don't know how people do it.
Yeah.
Like the true crime podcast.
Well, they're talking about previous stuff that's happened a while. Most of the time,
yeah.
If it never affects you indirectly or directly, it doesn't affect you indirectly. Most of the times it doesn't bother anybody.
Yeah, well, see, I think it would be hard for me because, like, what you talked about a little bit on the Gear Brother podcast, like when you had them on, is my family has dealt with like murders directly. Like my aunt was murdered brutally, and I saw the effect that it had on my grandmother and my mom, you know, throughout their entire life. That's where we kind of ended. Just in case anybody was like, what? They ended it there? Like, what the heck? I don't know. And then the idea that are some killers possessed is another friggin' topic that really blurs.
I wouldn't say no. I'm going to say yes or no. Most of the time people say it's a mental illness, a lot of them, but to have them by evil. And then some people claim like, oh, this and that. And then like,
well, I'll tell you, for me as a psychic point of view, right? You have some people that I can look at, like, I'll tell you just from my perspective, and I would never put this as actual, like, fact, like, I wouldn't, but because I don't know why, like, I was really big into true crime growing up, like, as a teenager, I would always read about true crime stuff, and I would definitely watch like the unsolved mysteries and stuff like that and all of that stuff, because I did want to become like a cold case detective. I specifically wanted to solve cold case stuff, and I took all these classes in high school on like forensics and all that stuff. That was what I wanted to do. But there's some serial killers like I look at and you could tell that, like, I feel they're just crazy. They're just like a mental illness. And then there's some that you're like, whoa, there is something else there. It's not very many, but like this guy, Andre, I always want to keep calling him Andrew, but Andre Rand, he literally looks just crazy. If I had to rule it, I don't think he was possessed. Like, just off a psychic point of view of looking at him, I don't think he's possessed. I think he had a mental instability. That's just my opinion.
Mm.
And I don't think all mental instabilities are dark attachments or possessions or whatever, but I do think there's some that get diagnosed as having like mental disorders that aren't mental disorders, that are, entity based or whatever.
And I guess that kind of wraps up today's episode.
Yeah,
anyway,
I know,
think
it's a short one.
so short, and you want more, be careful what you wish for this Wednesday. All right? Just letting you know that right now. Because you see the time mark on Wednesday's episode, you're like, oh, this is what he meant. Yeah. But yeah, so the few announcements we had at the beginning of the episode, we might make one more announcement of more certification, I guess, and more cemented on Friday, before Saturday, just so we have everything all properly announced. Let's say that. But as for right now, yeah. So, like I said, look forward to 29th, live podcast, 7 o'clock, live investigation immediately following, most likely 8 o'clock. And all that will be from Hidden in the Shadows podcast on Instagram and Shadow Walker, like I said, either the Hidden Shadow Walker Paranormal Instagram or Shadow Walker Paranormal TikTok. But like I said, Friday we'll have the more cemented answer to that question, which one it's going to be.
Yeah, and this is short, but you're going to get a lot of more in-depth stuff rounding out to Halloween. So
yes,
yeah, think of this as a little
teaser.
break. Yeah, a little tease, a little break.
But as always, guys, you can catch our social media at Hidden in the Shadows podcast on Instagram, Hidden in the Shot 6 on Twitter, Hidden in the Podcast 2 on TikTok. Links to all of social media and always links to us at hiddenshadowspodcast.com. Also, check out our paranormal page, Shadow Walker Paranormal Instagram. And also, I believe we have a TikTok as well, right?
Yes, I will post that in the episode description.
But as always, you can catch our widows in the next one.
Yes.
Month